Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back to
Hello.
Confidently Wrong.
What up?
Yo,
How are you guys doing today?
it's so interesting that just right before you gave that little intro, you had the exact opposite disposition.
Right?
You were like, and hello, gentlemen. You just turned it on.
Turn it on.
I don't know if you just like injected yourself with adrenaline.
Like
I can't
octane
see
stim.
below your chest. Yeah. What's
Got that
happening
The
there, Wes?
adrenaline in Pulp Fiction. You know, I'm Uma Thurman now. No,
I would
But
love to
a
see you
podcast?
do the what dance is that? I can't even remember.
oh, like the Dirty Dancing one. Where you, like, basically just
Yeah.
discoing
Keep
it
trying.
on
Keep
the
trying,
floor.
Wes.
I don't know. I'm also in a different space today. I don't know if you noticed. I'm in Kaya's bedroom, like straddling her dresser, like
Oh
in
my
the corner,
God.
like the
I don't want to
corner.
hear the word straddle when you're saying you're in your daughter's bedroom.
I'm in the corner of the dresser right here. The laptop is on top. The microphone is like perched on the edge. It's like not even fully on the dresser. It's like about to fall off. So there could just be audio shenanigans all over the place. The power cord is going across the door. Like there's a door right here to my left, and the power cord is in the air. It's not even long enough to like sit on the floor and then come to my computer. It's like a little high jump, for Kaya.
My word. Oh my.
You got this rinky-dink MacGyver set up. It's okay.
I know. I'm
It's
like
about the
feeling-
content of your words, not the quality of them.
It's pirate radio. At
This
its
is pirate.
finest.
Yeah, I had to pirate her room because we have a guest. My cousin's in town. We're recording this a couple days before the solar eclipse is supposed to happen. So her and her wife came in to check it out. It's supposed to fly right over Austin. But as I look outside right now, it's very fucking cloudy, and the forecast calls for clouds the next like week. So we may not even get to see it, which is gonna be sad.
How miserable are your guests?
They're not.
They
They're
have
not
planned
miserable.
this for years.
I know they've got a good head on their shoulders. They've been pretty good about it. I'm probably more. I'm fairly disappointed. I've been looking forward to it since the last solar eclipse in October. So this has been. I've been like, yes, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be right us. There's not another one for 20 years. I might not even be in the path next time. And it just like totally worked out that
You
like
might
we
not
were
even
here.
be alive next
I might
time.
not be alive. I'll be 60 fucking years old. Like, guys, this is what is happening. So. I might have glaucoma, cataracts. Who knows? I might not be able to see it by then.
Yeah, because you were staring too hard the first one.
Well, so is that what this is? The silver lining? Because the clouds are there, I won't lose my vision, and therefore the next 20
You
years
can
I'll have
enjoy
my
the
vision.
one in 2044.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what it was. That's the silver lining here. Also, Sav, you are sporting a different haircut than the last time we talked.
Yeah.
I don't know if people noticed.
Yeah, I got a haircut last week.
If you're watching this on YouTube,
Was it a mistake? Did you lose a bet?
Well, damn.
Wait, did you like cut off part of it and then be like, oh, and then the barber just had to go the rest?
No,
Oh, okay.
Good Lord. I cut it for reasons we'll talk about off air, but
Okay, so it was
But-
intentional.
yes, it was
It looks
intentional.
good. I like it.
Yeah,
You don't
I
like
haven't-
it?
No, I like it. I haven't just
Okay.
haven't seen my head like this cut short since like high school.
Whenever I get my haircut after it's been like longer, the back of my neck is like cold. Like I could feel like all of the air conditioning, all of like breezes. It's just like everything tingles. Did you have that same effect?
No, because I get cornrows a lot, or I did.
Okay, so you have the
a
same
lot
thing.
of times I would have my scalp already kind of a little bit exposed.
Okay, so
But-
your brain is used to it.
Yeah, but like just not having anything there at all. Just when I look in the mirror, when I touch my head, when I lie down.
When you
That-
want to rip your hair out because you're going mad,
Yeah, I'm just
you got to use tweezers
I'm
now.
like, what?
Yeah.
What
It's
what
not
is
the
the
same.
verdict from the lady friends or the lady dates? Are they into it? Are they like,
So
oh
far,
yeah?
the streets is loving it so
Yeah,
far.
okay.
The streets, I just mean like my family, friends, and coworkers. They've all complimented it.
So
They've all
they're
said,
just
"You look
always
so
hanging
handsome."
out
They
like
say, "Oh,
on
you
the
look
street
so
outside
They
your
say, "Oh, you
place.
look so handsome." I'm like, thanks. But
Savant like looks grown though, right? Like he just aged 10 years,
Oh,
maybe
I
more.
thought-
Lord.
Really?
Good God.
I was telling him earlier, like now he's the end of the bench veteran that yells at all the rookies.
All right, Spencer Dinwiddie. Yeah,
Yeah,
see that.
Udonis Haslam, Spencer Dinwiddie, who did you
Taj
say?
Gibson
Taj
over here.
Gibson.
All right, let's get into it. This episode, we did such a good. I want to pat ourselves on the back. We did a good job of letting people know what we were going to watch, so that they could watch it too. So maybe people won't feel like we're spoiling it for them, because this is going to be super spoilers heavy. We're going to talk about Invincible season 2, back to the world of Mark Grayson and Owen. Oh no, what's his name? Nolan Grayson, Debbie Grayson. And the whole fam, and then all the Guardians.
Grayson.
All the Guardians. What is their name? It can't be Guardians of the Galaxy. That feels like that's
Guardians of the Globe.
Guardians
of the Globe. Okay. So we're getting into this Amazon Prime show. Obviously, it's been on. We've been pretty big fans of it. I think I honestly, well, I shouldn't say we've been pretty big fans. I was kind of lukewarm the last time we talked about this. Sav, can you remind us a little bit? Do you remember what we talked about? This was maybe back in November or October when the first batch of season 2 episodes came out. Where are we in the story? But also, do you remember like what our kind of general feelings were?
Yeah, we had conversations about the animation budget looking better, the show just looking cleaner and crisper, which was a big critique we had when we talked about Invincible season 1.
Wait, speaking of that, did you guys catch that like scene where they just like basically made fun of themselves for all of those animation things?
At the Comic-Con.
So funny enough, that is a joke lifted directly from the comic where...
Really?
Yes, where Mark is at a comic convention and he meets a character who's supposed to be like the writer of his favorite comic, and a bunch of those same jokes of beat for beat animation, this, that, how to like save budget and stuff. He talks about that, but from a comic book perspective.
Oh, okay.
And it does the exact same like versions of that joke in the comic. So like a good joke period about the animation and production stuff that happened, but also it's even better in that this is even a joke that they did in the original series too.
Love it.
But from about comics. So I'm glad you appreciated that.
Does it make us accept their flaws more that they're open about it?
I don't know.
We're saving money for the action scenes, basically.
I mean, yeah, but that's pretty much every animated series ever. Like, I don't think I've ever watched a single animated series that didn't save big budget stuff for the fancy fights outside of like one-off shows like Afro Samurai, where it would have to be like a limited series because that's not a sustainable way to do a show. So like, I don't know. That doesn't really bother me. And the show shines in a bunch of other areas beyond just its action. So it's not like they put all their eggs in that basket, in my opinion. Because this show is
they're putting in the voice acting basket.
Yeah, that's the part. Good. Honestly, that's the part that I'm a little thrilled about. I think I read a comment online that I hard agree with, that Invincible might just be some kind of money laundering scheme, because they're just hiring these big names for no reason.
Yeah, no, like bit parts too.
Yeah, and some of them are amazing. Like, we could talk about Sterling K. Brown and J.K. Simmons being, just top tier voice actors, and Stephen Young and their amazing performances. Sandra Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sandra Oh is the mom.
All them, so that's like the big dog hitters, but then you just have these big name characters to Seth Rogen, he's a producer on the show though, so that part makes sense. But like, you have these big name actors for like bit characters. I'm like, how much do they get paid? They're not even like a voice actor specifically. What are we doing here? Like, it's not a hard complaint, but every time I pause the show, I just see really famous. Like, what the hell is Jay Farrow doing on this show? I like Jay Farrow. I love his voice work, but it's just okay, I guess.
I didn't feel like he was recognizable. Like he did a different voice than his normal voice.
I don't know.
I think a lot of the voice actors are like that. I mean, like the famous actors that are in the show, right? Like you got they're
not bad.
The
but
actors from Community. You got Jason Manzukis, like all these people.
Oh yeah, Manzukis is super recognizable.
It feels like it's made for Amazon Prime, because it's like when you pause, right, or bring up the timeline, it shows you, it does the radar thing, and it shows you the headshots of all these actors. Like,
it has to be, dude.
They just wanted it to look good on pause.
It has to be, because there's no reason for them to have this many just recognizable names that are good, but they don't need to be this bit part. There are dedicated voice actors who could do this and probably do better. Anyways, we got off track.
I have no problem with it. Bezos has plenty of money.
Anyways, look, but we got ads, so it ain't got that much damn money.
Yeah, it sucks.
But anyways, so last we left with Invincible, when we did the first 2 episodes, we were really just dealing with the aftermath of the Omni-Man Invincible fight at the end of season 1, right?
Yeah.
The team pulling themselves back together, Mark figuring out what his life is. Yeah, a lot of sad Mark and him
I'm
trying
not
to
my father.
Yeah, and that was your biggest thing, is that, you know, Mark's dealing with just the aftermath of all of this and him pulling his life and trying to figure out what he wants.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get a whole lot in terms of really getting the ball rolling, because we're dealing with the blowback from what was a very wild season 1 finale. Since then, we've had 2 more episodes which involve Mark going to a different planet because he's gotten message from who we learned is his father. And then we still got the second half of the season that we'll definitely get into that too. But really, we didn't talk too much outside of sad Mark and what does he do next from the ashes of what his been destroyed life.
If I recall correctly, which, you know, could be wrong, I was pretty lukewarm.
Probably.
I think we even said, like, are we going to continue watching the show? And I was kind of like, maybe, I don't know. Just like, it didn't really do it for me those first 2 episodes. And I happened to actually stick with it. And then episodes 3 and 4 really picked it up. And then I was, you know, kind of, you know, my interest was like, okay, I'm kind of getting into it. And then we had to wait this whole time. I mean, it was what, like 5 months or something between episode 4 and episode 5 coming out, and episode 5, 6, 7, 8 just like all hits you just in the face with storytelling, characters, emotions, fight scenes, action scenes, like all of it just like comes together. So I'm actually very glad I watched it, because the second half of this season to me has been just like a killer piece of television, both in terms of writing, acting, producing, all of that.
Yeah. You were tripping from the bounds. We were telling you from the beginning. You mad that the character who's had a traumatic thing has an episode and a half of him dealing with it. I'm like, yo, we 2 episodes. I knew you were tripping from the beginning. Like,
Mopey Mark.
was very mopey.
I'm like, it is an
I just
episode
don't need
and
that
a half.
much mopiness.
It was an episode and a half that needed to happen in the context of the 8 episode season.
It didn't have to be that long. I still stand by that. It didn't have to be that long.
You're just impatient, and
I mean, true.
if you don't get it all thrown at you at once, it's unacceptable. Now, if you want to give an honest critique, it was that, and I don't know if this is because of production issues or the writer's strike or whatever else was going on, but the 8 episode season being split up and then released in a weekly format was not good. And I know the creators know that, because I read an interview with Rob Kirkman where he sarcastically joked about that. And so that was the biggest issue for me. Was it wasn't that we had the 4 episodes, it was that big gap really screwed the pacing of the season, because to Brian's point, he kind of mentioned in one of his comments, I think, in the notes, a lot happens, and that's cool. Invincible is a very dense story where a lot of things happen, but they threw off their own pacing by having that multi-month long gap, especially for stories that still were going to build off of each other. It's not like the gap had an actual narrative gap. It was just a real life production gap, which to me is very different. I would have felt different if the second half was like, had a mini time skip that happened or something.
Yeah.
But there kind of was with him rebuilding and stuff, but like, you could have had the next
story-wise,
you could have had the next episodes happen immediately after, and it would have kept that inertia and energy that I think you enjoyed, Wes, into the back half of the season. But us waiting for all those months kind of killed some of the hype a little bit, and I felt like I was kind of having to ramp back up to, you know, and even for me, knowing what happens, I had to ramp back up. But that's very different had I been able to just watch it, not even all at once, but just 1 episode per week over an 8-week period.
This man talking about himself like he's LeBron preparing for the playoffs. Like, my body had to shut down, and then I had to ramp it back up.
Hey,
I'm
20
old.
years in the league, man.
Like, Brody, you just had to watch the TV show.
No, but
you have the best memory of all 3 of us. So
yeah,
like,
but you talk all the time about but pacing matters.
If he had issues with the gap and the release schedule, like, just think of the layperson, the average Joe. Right, there was a lot going on this season. Like, we invested way more time with the Guardians of the Globe. There were multiple villains who came up, right? And just the fact that Angstrom Levy, the big bad, who Savan and I think rightfully so, we're very excited about, like, his arc gets a little deflated because he disappears after the episode where he premieres and then kind of gets lost in the shuffle for what is a very long time for the audience.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
Not in the
not
show.
so story-wise, but
No,
It would have
I
been
think
long
this season
either
will
way.
look better in a binge.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly that. Him being like he pops up at the beginning and then to establish himself, and then at the end. I think Brian and I kind of knew that was going to happen. Of like, oh, he's well, I'm not trying to spoil things, but he's like a big villain of Mark's, right? Like they have real beef, and so him appearing at the start and then popping up at the end, I think that's fine, even if you don't see him for all the episodes of the season. But having a 4-month real life gap is what really hurt it. Again, like that's the killer. Because
I think he should have shown up.
You didn't forget things from the first half of that Invincible season that was like,
oh, definitely
man.
did.
But
I definitely did, but I had a harder time remembering things from season 1, like the kid that was rebuilt, like Will's friend.
Yeah.
No fucking clue who that guy was. Like all his trauma and pain and whatever. I was like, I have no idea why this guy is like a problem.
So we can admit that long gaps in like a show production wise can just sometimes make certain story beats hard to pick up, especially for dense shows. Like that's why I think the pacing matters. You're already going to have gaps between seasons. You can't have a gap in the middle of the seasons. You're just because you're not, your people are losing inertia.
I'm surprised that you guys felt that way, or that Savan felt that way, given that you've in the past sort of been a little bit lenient on shows that have had production issues due to real life circumstances, like when we talked about Falcon and Soldier, whatever that fucking show was. And you talked about like
that's
how
the correct title,
Falcon and fucking Soldier, the way that the pandemic affected their storytelling and their timelines and production and things like that. And so there were some there were very significant, I think, bumps in the way that one presented itself. And that to me like was rubbing me the wrong way. I agree that like having to wait was like not ideal, but like in some ways for me, actually, just for whatever reason in this particular time or this year, it actually was a chance for me to just like get excited about it coming back. And I didn't have too much following. I think they did a pretty good job about doing the previously ons in the beginning of the show to catch someone like me up who just doesn't remember things. And I don't feel like I missed any of the feelings or the thoughts or whatever, like the storylines. So I thought it was not too bad. I didn't mind it. And I'm always a fan of like, get the story right, get it, and get the whatever you need to do right, rather than trying to rush and put something out that isn't good. So even though they're delaying like, Beyond the Spider-Verse or whatever the next movie is called, like I'm okay with that. Like do it well.
We know you're not okay with that.
I'm not okay with them cliffhangering, but like now that I know that I'm gonna have to wait anyways, like I don't mind waiting another 6 months or a year. I was like, okay, as long as the story is good, do a good job with the fucking story.
It's also a lot easier to remember a 2-hour movie than an 8-episode season.
Yeah. Also, the why for that kind of matters, because I do give grace if it's something that was out their control. Like, and I don't know the exact.
Like the strike is out of their control, right?
I don't hold that against them saying, "Hey, y'all made a mistake." This isn't you made a mistake. This is this circumstance, not anybody's fault. Is something that took from the show, and that's not anybody's fault. It's not a finger point. It's just this is an unfortunate consequence.
Look at Savan being like, it's not anybody's fault.
I mean, you get what I'm saying. No, like this,
What are you talking about? Is Joe Biden's fault?
Studio head fault.
No, but that's not. No, my point being,
siding with the man. I see, Sav.
Oh my lord.
I know what you're saying.
There's a distinction between someone creatively did something that was like not the move versus hey,
this is just what happened.
Things happen.
I mean, what they could have done is they could have waited, right? Like someone decided like, let's do these first 4 episodes, even though we know the back half isn't ready yet, and they could have waited on that and just released it in the spring right now, right? That was somebody's choice too, around thinking, well, we got to get our viewers in, we got to get our subscription numbers up or something. I don't know what their thinking was there, but yeah, I mean, I could see that. It didn't bother me as much as maybe normally it would bother me. I just kind of was smooth braining this one, so it was cool.
For what it's worth, they also made this one in season 3 concurrently, so I think the gap won't be as long.
Oh, okay.
Thank goodness.
I also read that in a Rob Kirkland interview where he was talking about just how this season went and yada yada.
All right.
Anyways, yeah.
Wait, is Kirkman the original writer of the show? Also,
the
comic?
comic.
Yeah, he's the creator.
And does he help write this show also?
He does.
Yes, he's heavily
Okay.
involved.
He's very involved.
Cool.
He's basically doing this show as like a second draft of his story for the original Invincible in
neat.
terms of how he's been changing things.
And there will be a third draft in the form of a live action movie, which he is also heavily involved in.
Bull
Oh
dinky.
no. Okay. I don't know if I'm
Whatever.
excited for that. That doesn't feel
Yeah.
very exciting.
But
All right,
whatever.
so
Anyways,
And he
we
has
got-
said Steve Yeun is too old to play Invincible live action.
probably true. So we got all these different storylines. There are alternate storylines. Like we even get like a weird Spider-Man knockoff guy. Is there anything in all of these storylines that are sort of weaving throughout the show? Do they stick out to you, come together for you? Are you enjoying anything? You know, I don't know if you mean like if you were into the side stuff around Mark and Amber, or you were into like the stuff around Donald, you know, Rudy and Monster Girl. There's just all kinds of things like surrounding it, Immortal and Duplicate, right? There's just a lot of stuff going on that's outside the story. So before we get into the main kind of story, what's standing out to you, or was it just like fluff and you were just like, nah, let's get back to the whole Mark, Omni-Man, Viltrumite thing? Brian, what do you think?
Well, coming into the latter half of the season, right? These new 4 episodes, you know, of course they're building towards a grand climax in episode 8. However, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, even after we left Thraxa, they left us on Thraxa in episode 4, and then we got this 4-month gap. But then, rather than, you know, like letting all of that storyline play out, we get the Mars Sequid storyline
Coming back.
in the middle. You know, I think maybe in episode 6, episode 5 and 6, it comes through, along with the Rexplode storyline. And those had me super hyped. Oh my god. You know, like Anna is next to me on the couch, literally shaking because she's so nervous at everything that's happening on screen. I mean, you know, the whole Sequid invasion of Mars just looks completely dire, and they played it so well in that episode. That was such, like, in terms of fight action sequence, you know, the stakes being super high, the drama feeling like, you know, all is lost for our heroes. That's exactly what you want out of a comic book superhero animation, and they delivered in spades, especially because it had the Rexplode thing happening simultaneously, and it all just played so well together, right? And because we've spent more time with the Guardians of the Globe, and getting to know some of their interactions. Like, we've spent time with the Martian that's inhabiting the astronaut's body too. Like, all of that had set us up so well for this fight to be as good as it was.
Absolutely.
Sav, you're on the same on board. You liked all the other weaving storylines that are happening at the same time.
That's the best part about Invincible. The best thing about the Invincible series is that the main storyline's cool, but there's always these other side things with other cool, fun, diverse, uniquely designed characters that you just get to watch on screen. And for me, I think Invincible would be a way weaker show if it was just focusing on the Viltrumite conflict. I love all the side stuff. So Sequid Invasion, the Lizard League, like, and I talked about it before, which granted I knew a little bit, but I was curious about how they have it pay off. And yeah, the episode where they're hyping up the Lizard League to be really some dangerous. They're a joke team. They're gonna do something legit, and they did it in a way where I was like, oh yeah, this is adapted very well. I'm genuinely entertained. What's gonna happen with Rex? I think, Brian, they changed just enough from the comics to where you're not sure if a character's gonna live or die or not, and it kind of it's just enough for me to be like, ooh.
Yeah. I thought more people died from that fight. That's how I remembered it.
More did, because they had other Guardians characters they don't show. But Wes, to answer the original question, all the side stuff, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I want more. There's more side stories coming that I'm like, hey, I can't wait. That being said, they adapted and expanded on certain characters, like the Donald stuff you didn't really get in the comic.
That's totally new.
Loved it. Yeah. They revamped it. They added depth to who was really just more of a funny background character. And these are examples of the changes that are like, I might know what happens, but how certain stuff plays out, I don't. And it still makes the show super refreshing.
Yeah, I think the Donald story actually paid off really well, right? It was, how do you deal with your pain, your loss, whatever, and you think it's going to go one way. Donald is freaking out, and it seems like he might turn against Cecil and the whole, whatever they're called, DCA, I think, or something like that, or GVA. And then all of a sudden he's like about to lose it, and Cecil shows him all of the moments of his heroism in his past, and how all of those times he had to be brought back, and he realizes, wait a second, like, I've chosen this life, and it gave himself so much more agency, right? Like, the whole part where it seemed like he was going to freak out was because he felt like he was a pawn in Cecil's game, and it turns out that he absolutely was in control of his own life, and that made all the difference for him. And he's able to then share that moment with the other guy, Rick, I think is his name, something like that.
Sure.
The kid who had, I think he had gotten killed or exploded in college in season 1. And he's William's friend as well, maybe lover, unclear. So I don't know. I think that just like was such a beautiful like side story that we got to enjoy. And there's so much of that in this show, from, Immortal having to face his own like changes, right? As he is older now, and he's building these relationships, and he has this relationship with Duplicate, which we think is probably a fling early on in the season, or at the end of season 1. Maybe I think it's at the beginning of season 2. And then it turns out that no, actually he has like really deep feelings for him, and for her, and it kind of almost takes him by surprise how torn up inside he is. And for those of us, obviously with like loved ones of any sort, you can relate to that idea of like what it would mean to lose someone who's like super dear to you, whether it's, a partner, but it could also just be any other like family member or friend. And the show, I think, shows like how hard that can be to come back from that, and Immortal is just like, I can't do this job right now. Like I'm not able, like I look like I'm able to, but all the muscles in the world don't help me fight this, right? And he has to find his own way through. So I don't know, just like such like emotionally powerful moments throughout the show.
Wes cried very much, very often this season.
I can't cry, I'm a cyborg. The Angstrom Levy thing, I don't know, I would say that needed more time to breathe. Like, they did a great job when he showed up in the first episode and in the last episode. But like, I don't know, you're telling me that like he was Mark's, nemesis, that there was a lot of them going back and forth, but like Mark barely knows who he is. He barely remembers him, and like I think had that been a multi-season thing where that actually comes later, I think that would have been really good. And you didn't have to have Angstrom Levy be the guy that, and like I said, spoilers, right? Like, he didn't have to be the guy that Mark kills. It could have been anybody else. It didn't have to be him. Like, he's not super important to Mark's life, right? He's important because he's threatening his family, but that could have been another villain, right? So I don't know. I wish that they played that string out a little bit longer, because Angstrom Levy as a character is very interesting, right? Like, that he's dealing with his own psychosis of having all of these timelines in his head at once. He's trying to figure things out. He's very mad at Mark, but Mark doesn't have any animosity towards him personally. And he's a figure of like showing us what Mark has become in all these other, opportunities when he's had this unlimited power. And we have a special Mark, right? That is as not that. And I think he would have served to reinforce that idea throughout the show, but you guys are smirking, so maybe he does come back in another form later. I don't know.
No, this is just, I just like when you're in your West bag. You're just in your West bag right now.
Like, you wouldn't want him to show up like more to like actually have interactions with Invincible, where like
it's more about
it's
more about like the impact this conflict has on him later. More so, it's like, it's one of those, like, like, okay, like for Batman, or what is it for Spider-Man, it's Joe Chill or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's not really that you're there, it's that what you have done has just impacted them in such a significant way that that's what makes them so important, even if it wasn't like they weren't someone who they just had a lot of face time with.
Okay. I think that could have been played out more.
I do think, I had mixed feelings about it as well. I don't think your criticism here is completely off base or anything. Like I mean, he, in my mind, right, as somebody that read the comics, like he occupies a huge space in my Invincible brain as to how important this character is, and to see sort of like his culmination at the end of the season occupy, I don't know, 20 minutes of the season finale. In some ways, I kind of wanted it drawn out too. Like maybe even if that 20 minutes or 10 minutes was played out across 2 episodes, right? Like, kind of the way they did the Sequid fight, which played out across 2 episodes. Like, if they had done that for Angstrom Levy, maybe that allows us as viewers to help his character and that conflict magnify in our brains. Because everything that we did get in that 10 to 20 minutes was really solid. Like Sterling K. Brown, took us to another level in the same way that J.K. Simmons does on the show. And, all the villainous acts that he's perpetrating against the mom and Oliver, and the way that he's delivering the lines and talking about his hatred for Mark. Wonderful, excellent stuff.
However, they did a great job showing us all of his trauma, right? Like him losing his son, all of this stuff.
All the blended memories
loved
that
ones,
different versions of him have experienced.
And Mark just being a complete
monster,
lunatic. Yeah. Oh, I understand why you're like this.
Which, by the way, completely new sequence they added in the show. In the comic, when Angstrom is terrorizing the family, he's not. You don't get to see him having these mini breakdowns of actually seeing what the different versions had experienced firsthand. You know that it happens because you know that he talks about it. Wait, did I cut out? You know it happens because he talks about it, but when Mark's at the prison camp just casually slicing heads, when he smashes the ground, when he outright kills the kid, all those different versions, it's again, and and I'll talk. Me and Brian can talk more on one of the later questions.
They did it off camera.
Yeah, which was tasteful for a very untasteful, unsavory thing happening. But
this whole show is untasteful.
The slicing of the heads, though, that was brutal. That was next level brutality.
Yeah, but they did a good job of really getting man, Angstrom is tripping, but I get why he is tripping the way he is. So it's like one of those. There's definitely they definitely lean into the element of his character being tragic, which makes all of this stuff in this episode that much sadder because it's like, oh my god, dude, y'all should be on the same team side now. And I'm like, oh, this is the worst misunderstanding just ever. This is so awful.
It was but the way they did that was so good.
No, it was great, but I was just like, oh my god, we don't have to be doing this right now. It was very stressful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
All right,
I just love that it's over a misunderstanding. Well,
it's not a misunderstanding.
You have that with your spouse or your sibling. It's like, wait, we're arguing about 2 totally different things because I thought you said this word, but you actually said this other word. Oops.
That happened. It did, dog. You tried to save me. I did not. You did, dude. You literally did. I was there. Those Mauler goons were beating the brakes off me.
Okay, so we've talked about Donald. We talked a little bit about Angstrom Levy, a little bit about Rex. I think we could talk more about that in Immortal. Was there any other characters that you were into, or the character stories that you were into? I actually ended up really not liking, but feeling invested in the Mark and Amber saga.
Yeah, you were. We know where your heart is. Also, who doesn't love Zazie Beetz?
Yeah, but it could be. I think that could have been really. I think that could have been really extraneous or whiny, and I think the way that they wrote it ended up being actually very grounded and real and mature.
And that is a storyline that they did properly feed and seed over multiple episodes, right?
Yeah.
So it does feel earned.
Again, they completely changed how that relationship and breakup went. And
really?
Completely. Amber was a way less interesting, more one-note character in the comics. The breakup is way less tasteful, and like there were some key elements, like the whole Anissa threatening her thing never happened. But they did but again, this is an example, I think, of Robert Kirkland just saying, hey, yo, when I wrote this originally, this just wasn't good. I can do better. Here's how we can shuffle it around and make these characters more engaging and less one note, or just stuff that was frankly bad writing just being completely like changed. And so Amber went from literally a background character who pretty much does nothing in the comics, right, Brian, to even though they've broken up, she's still someone who's had a profound impact on who Mark is as a person and wanting to be a good. So even though they're not together anymore, it's going to be clear moving forward in the series, in my opinion, that Amber had a positive impact on him, because he talks about how she makes me want to be a better person. And one of Mark's big character traits is just wanting to be better and holding himself accountable for his power. And like, I think that's very important, because it happens in the same series of episodes where the mom talks about how I raised the one who was different. So, which actually, to my big thing of characters, the mom, Debbie, she
shout out Sandra.
Again, not the most interesting comic character, because I think she was written kind of poorly. But man, in this show, she might be one of my favorite characters. She's just this human who has to be so resilient in this insane world, but she's uniquely intimate with it in a way that others haven't, because she was married to the man who tried to take over the world, and her son is the one trying to carry the legacy of protecting the world. And like, and she's just managing through all that, putting her own life together. Like, there's never a scene or sequence with Debbie where I'm not actively listening and invested, because she's so well acted, she's so interesting, she's so human, but also superhuman in how she just like is just a badass. Like, even through all that awful Angstrom stuff, man, Debbie was holding it down. She went at him.
I love that.
She went to action. She was talking that shit, man. You tripping, you mad because you the villain, you projecting, you hating, but really, you hating, but like, my son good. So like, why are you mad? Why are you hating from outside our dimension? You the one who came in. Like, you know, she was talking, protecting Oliver, deciding to take on Oliver, which again, they made it way better than how it went in the comics, but of her like being the parent who stepped up, like, yo man, Debbie a real G out here. Like, but I did not think she would be one of my favorite characters, but I gotta give props to Sandra Oh. She brings the character to life so well. And I know we talk about their inflated celebrity voice acting budget, but she's worth every penny.
Well, this is one of those instances, and I think the same is true with Amber. It's like they have hired these top-notch actors. Sandra Oh, Zazie Beetz, and I think in a way, and I'm pretty sure I've read a little hints of this from Robert Kirkman himself, that by them casting those people, he kind of had to write a little bit more for those characters to even justify it, right? He had to give them some meat, because what a waste it would have been otherwise. Like, why even have them there? And that made the Invincible story that much better. But one thing we haven't even talked about is Thraxa and the Thraxans. What'd you think of that storyline, Wes? Because Savannah and I are both familiar with it, but like seeing it come alive in the shows.
We knew it was coming years ago. Yeah, we've been.
I was like, this is wild.
Yeah, man, what's up?
It was wild, but it was good. I mean, you have kind of influenced me by saying like, I don't want all aliens to be humanoid, right? And like the fact that these aliens aren't humanoid actually,
that's like Savant's favorite critique of sci-fi.
It is,
but it
while the Viltrumites look like passable humans, we say,
why are they all Freddie Mercury?
Just because they got mustaches. I thought it was cool. I mean, you go in thinking like, oh, is he conquering another planet? And then all of a sudden it's like, no, Nolan has somehow, right, maybe a little bit unearned, but somehow just sort of turned his mind around a little bit around what he's thinking. And we don't really find out until episode 8, I think 7 or 8. No, it's 8, where we actually find out he's like why he, or like that he's actually aware of his change of heart, right? He's aware of his change of perspective.
He feels empathy is what you're describing right
exactly
now.
Right. And he's like thrown off, right? Just in the same way that Guardian is thrown off by his his vulnerability to something, given that he's immortal, right? That Nolan is thrown off by his ability to feel empathy and to be more human. And, you know, something broke in him when he had to fight his son and when he almost killed his son, right? Like he's somehow like something in his head flipped, which we'll get to kind of at the end of this podcast. But I mean, the Thraxan
human
Cool.
exceptionalism.
Yeah, and the Thraxans, and especially the Empress, I think she's an Empress or a Queen. Yeah. She makes it clear to Mark, like, yes, you're doing a great job, right? Like your dad maybe was difficult or like not who he should have been for you, and yet beyond that, right, there are consequences for others, right? And it's not just about you and your dad, it's actually also about the greater, like, life, right? It's about the greater galaxy and your universe or whatever. And she does it in a way that isn't like pandering. It's just like, these are the choices you have to wrestle with, right? And I think you'll make the right choice. I believe in you, right? And he needed to hear that from somebody that they believed in him, and it was an outside perspective that he needed. So I don't know, I think it was cool. I like that the subterfuge to get him there was like really like just kind of funny and tongue-in-cheek and interesting.
Seance dog.
Yeah, and it worked, right? Like they got him there, and then, you know, all of the bugs or the Thraxans are just like we tricked you.
But also, dude, man, we finally got to see our first like proper Viltrumite fight, not just Omni-Man smurfing his son in a one-sided. I don't even know if you call that a fight.
Yeah,
you got to see Viltrumites really fight, and man, they play rough.
Yeah,
like I was so glad, Brian, as someone who's read all these various Viltrumite fights, and I've gotten to see them drawn comic style, but to really just see some full-fledged grown Viltrumites out for blood throwing down was amazing. You know, when that one Lucan was just pressing his finger into Mark's head and just like literally forcing him into the ground. It's just like, are you sure you're Nolan's son? And the voice acting, Nolan and him going at it. He sliced his stomach with, like, I love how they use the Viltrumite strength as a blade to where they literally are chopping people. When Mark finally, the dad calls out Mark like a vet at the end of the bench, Brian, like the team veteran. Hey man, you're not hustling. No, you hold him back. Like, I don't care. Hey, if you don't play to win, they are gonna kill both of us. I need you to get your head in the game, because Mark is just so used to,
right? In
Rick
episode
Brunson
8,
yelling at Jalen.
Yeah, like, hey, like he, like, you know, Omni-Man went full Kobe to like Pau Gasol in the finals. Like,
yeah, I need the Black Swan.
I hate to do a Lakers Kobe analogy. It burns my soul, but Omni-Man was on that. Hey man, you playing soft right now. I need you to step it up. And I love that. Just that whole, just from a fight sequence perspective, loved it. Also, Omni-Man is just effing brutal. But I love these Viltrumite fights we've been getting.
Yeah, I agree, man. Shout out to Debbie as someone who just carried the weight of all of these different traumas and different like situations, and showed some real struggle, right? She was struggling through so much of it. She had 2 different guys like ask her on dates, and she's having to consider, like, am I even like in a place to date? Am I in a place to like feel happiness or deserve happiness? You know, she's thinking about all of these things, and her commitment to her son is still, you know, as high as it can be. And we see moments where maybe she's not able to focus on supporting Mark because she's dealing with her own loss, right? And Mark is dealing with his loss, and there's that struggle that we see throughout that season. So I don't know, man. I just think like the way they brought it together in episode 7 and 8 on the emotional level was just huge and like so impressive for a show that I was so bought in. And it didn't matter whether it was animated or not. Like, to me, just like to be that focused on a show and to feel like, man, they are not making a misstep. Every moment of this like show matters, right? Like in those last 2 episodes, even the stuff with Angstrom Levy, like you could have gone overboard with the portals and getting into different places, and they did lean into a joke a little bit with the dinosaurs, the talking dinosaurs,
or the Fortnite universe.
Yeah, you
Y'all
know,
catch that Fortnite joke?
No, I did not.
Did I?
When
Which part was that?
When Invincible flies
Around
out
the
the portal
campfire?
when Invincible flies out, that was legally distinct Walking Dead, I think. No,
There's definitely Walking Dead.
yeah,
There's
no. When
Mad
Invincible
Max.
flies out the portal, if you don't notice, when he flies out and he hits Angstrom Levy with like an item. The item was one of the like custom skins on a sniper rifle from Fortnite. Which means that he was in the Fortnite universe, saw the portal came out, had the sniper rifle, flew out and smacked him with it.
It was a weird gun.
And also Invincible was, if you pause the frame, you'll see it's like the literal Fortnite sniper gun. And recently Invincible was in Fortnite as a crossover. So they basically just canonized
corporate synergy.
So they basically just canonized Invincible in the Fortnite universe, and I love it.
But they could have gone overboard with all that portal stuff, right? And they had a couple gags, you know, for sure in there, but a lot of that stuff also mattered in that we were seeing how hopeless this actually is, right? Angstrom Levy is such a command of these portals that Mark would never get to touch him. And you know, when he finally gets into one place where he ends up killing Angstrom Levy, he has the moment of realization of, I'm stuck here. Like, the only guy that could have got me home, I just pummeled him to death. And that was like the only way that was going to go, right? Like, Angstrom Levy was going to drop him off anywhere, no matter what. And there was nothing he was going to be able to do about it. And this is just that would just happen to be the last stop. It could have been any of those places could have been the last stop for him, given that he was changing times. It wasn't like he was in the same universe in the same time and he could have just flown back home. He was just going to be asked out no matter what. So
I mean, he was only saved because Levy's insane and was like, I'm softening you up because I want to kill you myself. Levy could have ended that fight in the very beginning and just stranded him somewhere and called it a day. He's just such a hater.
That desert.
He's just such a hater that he literally said himself,
he said,
I'm going to kill you myself. I'm like, well, sounds like you're your own worst enemy right now, dog. Like, sounds like you're playing for style points instead of the win, which honestly, as I said out loud, as I say it out loud, I'm like, I don't approve, but I respect. Like, hey, if I didn't like somebody that much, I get it. I might want to do the deed myself. Like, I get it. I don't know if I sabotage myself like he did or set myself up for failure, but I get it. It's like,
So compared to other multiverse fights that we've seen in recent years, like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I think there's one at the end of season 1 of What If. How would you compare this multiverse fight?
It was fine. I mean, I don't know that the actual fighting part mattered. The part that mattered to me was he kept getting stranded in these places with nothing to do, right? Like, I think what's like hard is like by the time he actually fights him and like is able to like combat him, he's been in and out of thousands of universes. And in all of that time, sometimes he's stranded there for years or months or whatever, and he doesn't know like how his mom is doing and how his brother is doing. So like the fucking with your head that's doing of this ongoing fight for years of your life or months of your life or however long, you get the desperation.
Least days,
and you understand. I think like you understand why Mark is so desperate at the end and can't control himself. And even though he criticizes himself at the end, which like, he probably should have stopped. It's like, dude, like you're exhausted. You're literally just like, you have no, it's like you're Kaya, right? You have no frontal cortex power at all. You don't have any energy left to just control. Any of your, dude, she's just a meltdown.
My son shaded his daughter hard.
Yo, in her own bedroom, no less.
You sure the Eclipse ain't here already? Because, good God.
No, I'm just stating the facts. Let me tell you.
I don't know that I got that Mark was stuck for months on in some of these places. They could have played that up more.
Right. I think they could have, but like if you think about it, like how long he was in this like portal fight where he had no power, like all his powers didn't really help him here. He would fly out of one, and then Angstrom Levy would just put another one up, right?
Well, he said himself that time runs differently in certain ones, so he's lost track of how much time. Well,
and when he's at the campfire scene, he talks about how like hopeless he's feeling.
Yeah, so like I think that you would a viewer, you know, I don't know if it'd be like months, but at the very least, let's say multiple days. And you're right, it is easy to forget that the viewer knows that Mark ain't gonna be hard stranded. At least we don't think so, but he really doesn't think that, which you're right, it does play into his desperation at the end. But I think what made this Portal multiverse fight better than most others was, to your point, the psychological, but the emotional stakes of it. This wasn't a fight. I mean, this fight was one part, let's show cool locations and stuff, but they could have went way, way sillier with that if they really wanted to.
There was no paint universe here.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, they still kept it a little more grounded in that sense, but I think the focus was more, to your point,
100%.
It's about, like, this is an issue that Mark can't really punch.
Right.
He's also in a hostage situation. But then he has to keep making split-second decisions of, do I go through the portal? My mom and brother are hostages. I need to attack this dude, but if I'm not careful, they could die. For me, that's what made it better rather than the portal. The portals were just a means to just psychologically torture Mark, which was better than... Because most of those, you're right, most portal sequences are about, hey, let's just have the animation team have fun with all these cool gimmicky places that we can make up literally anything for, which there's nothing wrong with that, but man, I was on the edge of my seat because the situation just kept getting worse, right? Like, Mark's getting desperate. Mark went from, F it, I'm going to just attack you, to, okay, let me try and reason with you. Okay, that's not working. All right, hey, let me just talk you down. No, that don't work. Then he tries to say, look, I'm not doing this no more. He throws the knife at the mama to make him have to keep playing this game. The mama decides to take things into her own hands and ends up getting her whole arm shattered while the baby bump his head. Like, man, that shit was stressful. Like, the most stressful parts weren't even the portals. It was like, yo, Angstrom is so unhinged that I'm
him
so
picking
terrified.
up the baby by the leg.
I'm so terrified for Oliver and Debbie right now that, like, I'm watching that whole scene with just, like, my hands, you know, and I read the series, but I'm still like, yo, this is stressful.
Yeah.
So good portal fight, but not for the reason that most portal fights are good.
Right. And Sterling K. Brown played it so good. Right? You could
Amazing.
I think, well, to me,
Yeah,
it
chef's
seemed
kiss.
like it could have been way overdone. And he did it a pretty a pretty exaggerated version of a villain. Like, it was not like a subtle performance, right? It was very much like, ha ha ha, I am the villain. And he made it work. I don't know. Like, I don't know how he did it.
But his delivery is still subdued at the same time.
Yeah, it didn't come off silly. It came off like, oh shit, like, you're just way beyond right now.
It's because the character's mentally unstable. Like, this is a character who's mentally unstable. They're not inherently evil, so there's definitely some rational and intelligence in there, not just like a rabid dog. Yeah. But they still have a lot going on. So
kind of a rabid dog.
I mean, yeah, but like, he's not a rabid dog because he still thinks and has plans and comes up with strategies. But he's also just unhinged because of all the memories. Like, I don't know. I think Sterling K. Brown's performance, combined with them adding in him having those mental flashbacks to show what he experienced, both came together to really elevate both. Like, I think Sterling K's voice acting elevated the dialogue, right? But then those scenes to show what the character had been through also elevated his performance. And this is, again, a case of, like, good writing and good acting, voice acting coming together in a really dope way. But I loved that.
I loved it.
Tears I wanted more down his face, like him breaking down. I felt bad, scared. I felt so many emotions, that whole sequence of anger, sad.
The multiverse of emotions.
Yeah, Mark beating his ass, and I'm also like, hey, yo, like, because in my head I'm thinking, hey, yo,
save this man.
No, I'm like, that's your ride home.
Oh,
like, that's your Uber. That's your Uber, pimp.
Yeah, you just put a 1-star review. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about the fight. We see Mark fight Angstrom Levy, and it seems like Angstrom Levy is saying, like, I've fortified myself. I'm good at it. I can take this. I can take you on now. I've planned for this. And eventually, Mark gains the upper hand and just starts beating him to a pulp and can't stop himself. He's just so red with rage that he's just beyond the pale. And before he knows it, he's actually
not
killed.
Pale, he's red.
Yeah, he's killed Angstrom Levy, and when he realizes this, after he's already been punching this dude's dead corpse for a while, he's just like completely beside himself now for a different reason, right? He's horrified at what he's capable of.
That's his first kill.
Was it?
Yeah.
And he had even said, like, I think earlier in the season he had said, like, I don't kill people, and that was what you were talking about with that fight with the Viltrumites on Thraxa, where his dad had sort of said, you know, you need to kill them, like, that's otherwise they're going to kill you, and this is not
half measures.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark never killed anybody though up until that moment when he killed Engstrom. Like if you think back, he's killed like monsters and like the Sequids and stuff, but in terms of like a being person, he's never killed anybody.
He hasn't. Okay. And
beat the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the way they used that moment was so clutch. I mean, just in the like half an hour remaining in the show or however long it was after he did that, it is just now going to be such a focal point for him in his life. And like I like that they did that, right? Like it shouldn't be a small thing. And like while you understand why he did it and Cecil's telling him like it wasn't your fault, like you did what you had to do, and Debbie kind of telling him the same thing, he is just like, like that was not who I wanted to be. And he's full of just like, that instant like, oh shit, like this is real. And
are you mad now that he's sad? Are you mad that they had a portion of the episode where Mark feels emotions over the awful shit that's always happening to him?
No.
Or is this just like, they did the same thing with episode 1, but now at episode 8, I'm sick of sad Mark.
Mopey Mark.
But he's not. Yeah, but he's different, right? Because he has an agency here that he didn't have in the first 2 episodes, and it's fine like that they did that. And I'm not mad that they went through that. I think it got drawn out too long in the first 2 episodes. It was just like montages of him like, walking around his house and just not. But he also wasn't answering questions, So it's just like, what's the point of this? Like, I get it, you're sad, but you're not giving us any more information anymore. Whereas like in this one, he did. He gave more information.
There's a question of recency.
It could be.
I think the issue is that
the
trauma happened like years ago in the first couple of episodes, but here the trauma just happened within the same episode. And
maybe that's right. Maybe
you're able to remember it.
That's good. Could be true.
Learn to have not short-term empathy, Wes. You monster.
Well, what I wanted to focus on was like how well all of these strands come together for him. Like his difficulty with his dad. It's not difficulty. Like his dad being just a complete dick, and a conqueror and a terrorist. Like comes together here. Him feeling guilt. Him struggling with Amber, his relationship with Amber. Him feeling out of place at school. Not feeling a part of the decision making with Cecil or in control of his own life with Cecil. Like he is very much still treated as a child, but still dealing with problems that are enormous. And it comes together in this moment. And then the ramifications of that are, to me, it's kind of cool that he's going to be not cool. It could be interesting if this is the moment where he actually has to work on himself, right? Like he says, like, I need to be better. Do you understand? Like, whoa, what a line. Do you understand? Like, my mom, do you understand like what I need you to understand what I need right now, right? And she's like, I do, so like, woo, the connection there between those two is just like brilliant. And I'm just so excited
their relationship.
How he grows. Yeah, how he grows in the next, season or whatever. And
I love that his climactic decision is basically, I'm going to quit college. I know I'm an Asian kid
quitting college.
I'm quitting college. I'm sorry, Mom. I've disappointed you.
Yeah, which that statement in a vacuum insert, like, no, Mom, I'm not even. Anyway, I'm not even gonna do it.
Yeah,
but
he should be dead right now. If this was real, no, I'm just kidding. That's a stereotype. Asian parents aren't all like that.
No, but it's real talk because just when you hear just the statement, I'm quitting school, is like, all right, bro, like it's a little dramatic, but like. Yo, man, them Viltrumites are coming. Don't forget, Anissa gave that ominous warning. It's easy to forget amongst the sea of information that this show throws at you, but Anissa literally told him when he said, "Okay, I'll assume the mission was, I'm telling you to be chill about it, but if you're not, one of my peers is gonna come and they're not gonna be very chill, and me and Brian knows exactly what that means, and." It's like so much is like basically Mark has finally like I guess I'm just loving Mark's conflict of wanting to be better, like you said, Wes, which him just really saying that really was an amazing line, but then balancing that with what his dad told him in the beginning of you got to start fighting like a Viltrumite, and it's this weird almost irony of for him to be better and protect his people, he has to embrace some of his Viltrumite traits, because if he doesn't, he will die. Just straight up. They will come here and they'll just slaughter everybody. And like, that's a really good conflict for someone who, like, this is like an interesting version of the Superman dilemma of how do I deal with having so much power? Because he's powerful enough to where he has to hold himself accountable because he could be the most dangerous thing on the planet, but not so much that he can't just get his ass beat and can't get overwhelmed if you catch him lacking. Like, it's a really good balance that makes him, it's like, this is basically Superman's dilemma, but in a cooler way. And I'm loving it.
And then he's also faced with this dilemma of, you know, he wants to be a normal human, right? And live a normal human life, but that's not possible. That's not his reality. And that's the disappointment that he's waking up to over the course of this season, right?
Yep.
Like, he can't have a normal relationship with Amber. That moment when he's flying over her on campus and she sort of senses a presence above her and he's about to approach her because he needs her help, right? He needs somebody in that moment, but he restrains himself. I think that also is that moment of realization, like, no, I exist on a different plane now, and I need to live up to those responsibilities. And part of that means avoiding people like Amber, who are only going to be casualties in my life.
Yeah. And it sucks because he doesn't want it at all. It is so clear that Mark doesn't want any of this. It's clear that, you know, he doesn't want, he literally told his mom, like,
well, he wants to be a hero. He wants to save people.
Yeah, but he also specifically said, yeah, but it's like, it's more of an obligation out of, because of what he can do. Like, he wants to save people because he has that power, not the other way around, which isn't like not a shade to him, but it's like he wants to live a normal life. But, you know, a point that's made multiple times throughout the show from other characters in him is like, when you have power like him and can do the things you do, how could you not just be using it to help people? So like, he takes that responsibility and burden very personally. And yeah, one of the saddest things about the show is him having to realize, hey man, you just ain't gonna have a normal life. And him and the mama even realized that at the end, right? Debbie, of like, man, I thought that this would all be over. Or there's moments where characters think, oh, I thought things could go back to normal. And it's like, hey man, we're just not gonna have a normal life. And this is just, we gotta make peace with that. And it's sad, but it's very well done. And it makes Mark's dilemma and growth as a character interesting because he doesn't want any of this, but he accepts the burden, and it's like, dang, this is my cross to carry. It's like, that's rough, buddy.
Yeah, Trump is coming whether we like it or not.
Hey, you better chill out.
We're not going back to normal.
Hey, we're trying to. Oh, God, yeah, you're right.
No, we're definitely not going back to normal. All right, so let's wrap this up. We didn't even have time to do like a question where we got to answer things like tangentially related to the show. This is how packed this show has been, and how much we've just wanted to, like, you know, just dive into this juicy sandwich of a show, basically. All right, so my question to you guys would be, as we wrap up, what are you looking forward to or expecting for next season, or as more seasons happen?
Tough question, man. Both Savon and I have read the comics.
I'm gonna say
sort of know what's where it's headed.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna say one word because that's what I'm most excited for. Conquest. That's it. If you know, you know. If you don't, then you
is there
will
a side
know.
story? Yeah, is there a side story that you would hope they'd like bring into the show next season?
I mean, we know there's gonna be Secret Invasion Part 2. Like, we know that's coming. So like, let's just keep it a bean. Secret Invasion Part 2 is gonna eventually happen, and I'm trying to recall exactly.
Would you be excited about that?
I mean, I
don't know if it's gonna be good or.
I mean, I am, because the Secret Invasion stuff is always dope. There's still the Deus Ex. You know, Cecil and them had that frequency that can screw with Viltrumite hearing that they hinted at in the first episode of the new season, right? When he fought the underwater sea creature. Like, they're gonna do something with that. But my big hype thing is just the word conquest. It will make sense when you know, you will know, and it's gonna be one of the best sequences in the show, period.
One of my favorite things about Invincible are all the side characters, are actually all the other heroes and their warped worlds that they inhabit. So one thing that I am really excited for is actually where Monster Girl and Robot go. They have a very interesting arc as well that also ties in at least if I'm remembering this correctly, it also ties in one of the earlier villains.
Yeah, it does.
Who was an ongoing gag around time, and I think it feels like we're heading in that direction, and hopefully they do that justice. There's also a little bit about duplicate that's still to be explored. And I love that bomb when that drops as well. So, like there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of good material for the show to mine.
And new characters you still haven't seen yet, believe it or not.
All right. I like the Monster Girl robot interactions. They've been good, right? Just seeing like robots struggle with basic human things, basic teenage human things, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what being a teenager is like. You just don't know what the fuck you're doing ever, and maybe it's true as adults too. I don't know. Maybe it's not just a teenage thing, human thing, a boy thing. Could be that too. Okay, but my biggest thing that I'm thinking about going into the next season is like, am I really prepared to root for Nolan? Like, he's having this change of hearts, and he seems like he might be working with Alan, and maybe he'll he'll go against the Viltrumite Empire or Viltrum Empire. And so I'm kind of like, I want him to do that, but like, I don't trust this guy. I don't know if I'm ready to be like, yeah, you're forgiven for all the shit you did to humanity and to Mark.
But he misses his wife.
Oh yeah, that was weird too. Like, what? Like, no, they can't. Okay, but
which one? Right?
Yeah, I think he meant Debbie. But he can't. They can't get back together, right? So how does Debbie even process that information? Like, all kinds of questions. I really liked that, like, they left that part unanswered yet, and they haven't even started yet on like, are we gonna actually be cheering for Nolan in the next season, given what we know about what he did at the end of season 1? And it's like are things forgivable? Can you be redeemed through your actions? Depends on how they tell the story, right? Like, how do you, because in a lot of stories in the past, we have been able to be like, yeah, I can root for that character now. Like, I see their redemption. And sometimes you're like, nope, what you did is what you did, and like, that was unforgivable, and no matter what. And it's all about perspective and whose perspective we see. And if they show us more of Nolan's perspective and what's changed him and how he's willing to atone, then I think we as an audience will be more on board with that. And if they don't, and if it's more from like Debbie's perspective, or it's more from the victim's perspective and the human perspective, then probably not.
So here's something that, take this and do with this information what you will, Wes. This isn't a spoiler because this is things that have already passed.
Great.
Another thing that they have changed in this show quite a bit so far has been how people have received Omni-Man post the battle with Invincible. So when Invincible arrives on Thraxa in the comics, he hugs his dad because he's still happy to see him. In the show, Mark was just like, hey, yo, man, I'm still... Like, he was way more... They changed how he reacts to seeing Nolan again.
Why would he hug him? That makes no sense.
Because this is Robert Kirkman realizing that some of the stuff he did probably, in hindsight, didn't work the way it should have or wanted it to. Right. So in this one, Invincible's way more... Like, when he says... when he meets Oliver and he's like, no, man, you can't do that. You can't put that on me. All that was like new dialogue that they really added, because before, Mark was not nearly as critical of Nolan, saying, this is all on you, this is your fault. Mark is way more willing to just kind of help Nolan once he explains some of the situation. Even when they're dealing with the aftermath again from Debbie's perspective, which in hindsight was awful, Brian. In the comics, there's a point where Debbie lashes out at Invincible, blaming him partially for what had happened. But the show changed it to where...
people do irrational things when they can't control what happens. So, like, maybe that could have worked, depending on how they played it. But yeah, I heard what you're saying.
In hindsight, it was just not good writing.
Okay.
But in the show, they changed it to where Debbie was with Cecil while Mark and Invincible were having the fight. That didn't happen in the comics.
Oh, yeah.
So in the show, she was able to listen in on their conversation and basically be brought up to speed that Nolan is a monster. Okay. In the comics, she's not as, like, there's no narrative reason for her to know what their interaction was. So, like, the blowback is... The point is, she's way more sympathetic. My point being that they're setting it up already to from what the show has done of like, hey, people are not forgiving of Omni-Man. Even his immediate family are still like, hey, no, man, F this dude. They weren't nearly as F this dude in the comics in these portions that happened. And then also in that interview with Rob Kirkland, which I have to share with y'all, he talked about things coming for the next season and specifically talked about,
man, look at Sav here hiding the answers to the test from us. Bro, we're supposed to be a team. You're supposed to, send us the answers. You can't just hide them for yourself so you get a good grade on the pod. Come on, bro.
Don't pretend like you would even look at the answers if you had it before the test. We know where you're at.
Yeah, man, get out of here. But in an interview, he talked
Boy
about.
Scout over
also,
here.
I was reading it last night because it came out after the finale of the season.
Okay.
But so it's only been a couple days. Anyways, he talked about how in the end of season 1, the scene where Omni-Man kills all those people, the subway scene. Again, none of that is in the comic. None of that is in the comic. It's still a destructive fight, but it's not as him deliberately just massacring people. And so Robert Kirkland himself said that any type of Omni-Man redemption is going to be way harder because we just see him behave in a way that we didn't see in the comics, and that's just way harder to forgive, which I could not agree more with. So I don't know if they're going to go with a long-term Omni-Man redemption arc like they're trying to set up, but I imagine some key moments, Brian, where Omni-Man interacts with other characters are probably going to go differently based on how they've changed things already. Because just from what I've seen so far, more characters. Yeah, because already Debbie and Mark are not nearly as sympathetic or forgiving of Nolan at this stage in the story as they were in the comic, which bothered me in the comic. I was like, hey, yo, what?
Yeah, but the fact that I'm even considering it, I'm like, well, he is kind of our only hope here, is like got my brain, jumbled a little bit. Well, like, damn, I guess
that's just like do with that information what you will of like how they might try to handle his arc down the line. But they have been changing it so far to make him really have to work for it.
All right. Should we wrap up there?
You got something. Can I just add one cryptic bomb? Just like Saban did with Conquest.
Yeah.
I'm reminded now, after you just described everything with Nolan.
Is Battle Beast coming back? The lion
Las Vegas. That is my cryptic drop here.
Las Vegas. That doesn't mean anything.
I know, that's why.
Through this day, gentlemen. Conquest and Las Vegas.
Okay. You heard it here first. That's what we want to see coming up in this show. I don't know if they'll get to it next season, but
we shall see.
All right. Friends, let's wrap it up there. @confidently_pod on Instagram. Follow us there for socials. We post stories almost every single weekday. We like to get your opinion on things, especially, just like random thoughts about the geek universe, like Star Wars. And what else have we been talking about lately? X-Men has been showing up there. And then on our next pod, we're going to talk about 3 Body Problem from Netflix. So if you would like to kind of be caught up and not have spoilers, go ahead and start watching that show. Let me tell you, episode 5, be sitting down for that one. Don't be watching it on the toilet with your phone. Well, I guess that's technically sitting down, but I mean like sitting down watching a show. You gotta be sitting down watching that show. Not on the subway. This is not a subway show. Episode 5. It's a lot going on there.
You guys don't even have subways. Get out of here.
Okay, the bus. Can't be sitting on the bus. All right, friends. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.